I guess let's just jump into the alpha development notes, and then we'll look at their response, and then we'll look at the class tree. So, wither damage, I think these are all, this doesn't really matter right now, because I think class tuning hasn't really happened for the most part, so we'll take these as a grain of salt. But wither damage dealt by 30, reduced by 30%, and wither application damage reduced by 80%, which, I mean, I think, just from the stuff I've seen, I think this is expected, right? Improved Haunt, which is a new talent. Increases damage of Haunt by 35%, reduces cast time by 25, and now, again, applies Shadow's Embrace, which I do have a question about this, so we can talk about a little bit later when we get into the class tree. But Shadow's Embrace is its own talent, so I'm curious if you don't take Shadow's Embrace, if Haunt still applies it. I don't know if there's a world where you would do that, but I know that there was a Crescendo talent that if you didn't take Crescendo, it still gave you Crescendo. So I'd be curious if this works like that. New talent, Malign Omen, which this is basically our tier set. Casting Soul Rot grants 3 applications of Malign Omen, which just a different name now. Your next Holy Rapture deals 20% increased damage and extends the duration of your damage times 6. So personally, I think that this talent is cool. Eva Scar, thanks for the tier 1 for 5 months, my guy. I think this talent is cool, but I think that's a little low. I understand why it's not being applied to Seed anymore, because Seed's not really our thing. But I think 20% for especially where it's at on the tree, which is a Capstone, I think 20% is a little too low. I'd maybe like to see us bump up a little bit. I still think this might be a really solid talent for Mythic Plus, but we'll see. I think 20% is a little too low though. Eva Scar, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate that. Another new talent, Malefic Touch. Malefic Rapture deals an additional Shadow Flame damage to each targeted effects. I'm actually curious how much damage this actually does. Again, where this talent's located on the tree is a little strange. I messed around with a few like points to try and get there, and I don't really know how to get to this talent very easily without giving up a lot of things, so I'm a little curious about that one. It definitely sounds interesting, but I don't know if it's worth it. Infirmity, did I say that? Close enough. The stat count of Agony increased by 4 when applied by Vile Taint, and then enemies damaged by Phantom Layer take 10% increased damage for your first duration. I'm assuming this is more of a, for this portion of this talent, for like single target. Whereas like this part I don't really care about, so if they want to make this really competitive, I think either do something different here. Maybe increases the duration of Agony when applied by Vile Taint. You know what I mean? I think that would be cool. And then you could keep the Phantom Singularity thing for more single target damage for like raid and stuff. But I think this should be the duration, not the stack. Who cares? Haunted Soul being removed is actually kind of crazy to me. It was one of the few capstones on the entire tree after like with the previous rework that I was kind of more interested in because of how it would interact with Wither, but I understand why it's being removed, so that's fine. Haunt damage increased by 230% is insane, by the way. Like, I'm actually very curious to see how much. Haunt did not do a ton of damage, but this is like, that's a pretty significant buff. Okay. Cold Wink's been moved to gate 2. These are just a bunch of where they're moving these talents around. We can look at those when we jump into the talents themselves. And then they did make some changes to talent point costs. So like Empowered UA is only 1 point and Withering Bolt's now 2 points. Like, I hope that they review this. And they said, so we can jump into this part. We've moved Dark Glare upwards in the tree to make it easier to get. We've shifted talents to the 3rd section and added new talents to increase how many options are available. We're evaluating how many 2-point nodes are available, and we're looking to revise in the future build. This is the one that I think we're all kind of hoping gets adjusted and looked at, because I think there are too many 2-point nodes. We've also looked at Haunt and increased the amount of damage it does baseline. It feels, to make it feel more impactful upon cast, we've introduced improved Haunt as well, which is increasing talent. For Explorers 1 Haunt, lastly, moved Haunt to the 2nd section. Okay, so if we jump into this, I guess I could just zoom in a little bit more. Perfect. Okay, is that too much? I zoom in too much? You guys can see, right? You guys can see this? Reduce Vile Taint cooldown by 10 seconds. I don't think they'll reduce the cooldown of Vile Taint. I think that causes more problems than anything. I think if you just increase the duration of Agony, it would probably result in more happiness across the board. I think if you reduce the cooldown of Vile Taint, people are going to get upset. You know what I mean? But I think increasing the duration of Agony would result in the same situation. Because if they're going to keep Soul Rot a minute, keeping Vile Taint 30 seconds, it makes it line up better, but you need to make Agony's duration last longer so it fixes the gap. How's the tree looking? We're jumping into it right now, buddy. Okay, so none of this has changed, except for, like, like Rizzo brought up, you have to kind of take Seed now to get to Kindled Malice because of the pathing, which I guess for raid would be kind of strange. So 4 stacks standard, but if we apply a Vitality, it's first it's 8. Yeah, but I've never really, I don't know why sometimes they lean towards this increasing stack count of Agony. That's not the impactful part. Like, yes, it does more damage quicker, but we are more worried about refreshing Agonies in these weird windows. Like, that would be much more impactful than just more stacks early on, in my opinion. Because it's very reminiscent of the old talent that we had that, like, no one played ever. You know what I mean? Where, like, you increase the stack count when Seed, like, no one played that. No one played that. Having Seed in all, but yeah, having Seed in all builds is fine, but I do understand the idea of if talents are going to be the way they are now, having to spend a talent on a button that you might never use in a pure single target fight, not the best thing, but also it's not the end of the world in my opinion. Rather than does that. Yeah. So Kindled Malice, I think just anything that's increasing rapture damage, and this one increasing corruption damage, just flat out, especially if you're playing Hellcaller. Even if you're not, I still think anything that increases rapture damage because they're a big spender, I don't see how you give up that point. I personally also think that Siphon Life will still be the play over Absolute Corruption for most situations, just because, again, it's more corruption damage. While I like that there's a choice note, I guess. For people who maybe don't want to have to manage corruption, but I feel like you really don't need to. But either way, I think just buffing corruption damage, especially if playing Hellcaller, the more amp you can get in Wither, like, the better, right? I think Dark Virtuosity for Mythic Plus is going to be kind of that weird talent where I don't know if we ever take this. Unless you're playing Soul Harvester, I don't know if you take that. Corruption does so little, except Corruption gets turned into Wither, right? I can give up 5% for never having to refresh Wither. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I don't think you will be necessarily refreshing Wither from what I've seen. I think that it'll more likely with Seed of Corruption and things like that. I don't think it's going to be something you're going to be super, super worried about, but maybe in single target. Again, Nightfall, I think is a good talent, but maybe more Soul Harvester based. This is another talent that I still don't know how this plays. Refreshing Agony with 10 or less seconds remaining, just extra shadow damage. Like, I'm assuming this is just free damage for refreshing your Agonies early, like in pandemic range, so I guess we'll see how this feels in keys. A lot of these upper end talents almost seem like you can't really skip anything other than I skipped Dark Virtuosity in like almost every build I've messed with so far, just because at least in the current setup, I only ever take that talent in like pure single target, I swear. I'm so happy this is still here, by the way. Like, the choice node between sack and having your pet out, in my opinion, is huge, man. This is exactly one of the big things I asked for in my wishlist video, and I totally agree that I'm so happy this is here. I don't know if the damage is there yet, like, if Sacrifice still does more damage, or I want the option to not have to only play with Sacrifice for Affliction, because I'm kind of sick of it. Like, there's too much pet utility that's needed in keys that's too important. Infirmity should start at 8. With the way it's worded. I still think that I would prefer if Infirmity would just increase the duration of Agony instead of the stat count, in my opinion, but I mean, sure. We'll see how it goes. I still don't know how this talent is. Shadow Bolt and Drain still have a chance to trigger a Shadow Bolt volley. Ideally, that sounds really cool. I don't know how it feels to play with. Another one, I'm still very interested in running Improved Shadow Bolt over Drain Soul, just because I think Improved Shadow Bolt's fun. But now that they've moved the Shardgen for UA and the Shardgen for Agony down, we might still need Drain Soul sniping to get extra shards. The thing that I like with Shadow Bolt is just Nightfall Shadow Bolts feel great. I love that. I genuinely love that. So we'll see how that feels. I don't know. I'll just stick with Drain Soul for now. They kind of seem to be really wanting us to run Haunt, which makes sense since it ties in with Soul Harvester. But I think even without Soul Harvester, you might still end up running Haunt now. I guess we'll see how the damage feels. But my question though is, if you take Improved Haunt and increase the damage of Haunt by 35% and reduce cast time, whatever, but it specifically says Haunt applies Shadow's Embrace. If you don't take Shadow's Embrace, does it still apply it? Because I know there was a Soul Harvester talent that applied and gave you crescendos, even if you didn't have crescendo talented. So I'd actually be curious how that interacts. Why did they remove Seed? I don't understand. Go with Rapture. They didn't remove Seed. They just didn't make it your main spender. Seed's still there. It's just not the thing that you dump all of your shards on. Your Seed is just a setup node. I think the wording on this has changed too. Right, like increase the damage of Dark Lair by 70%, and then Dark Lair extends the damage over time. That's the normal thing, but it specifically says affected or Seer's affected targets. Wasn't this only affecting like single targets for a while there? I don't know. I thought I remember people talking about that. Sacrolash is one of those ones that like it's increasing corruption damage by an extra 15%. With how many nodes we have applying to corruption damage, I almost wonder if you're playing Hellcaller, this one's also mandatory. But I don't know. This is the one point that there's a lot of interesting points in this area that I don't know if this one's worth it. Maybe with Hellcaller, maybe not, if you're not running Hellcaller. These points I think are 2-point nodes that seem almost like they're just trying to get you to waste points in this area. Like they just want you to waste points down here to like unlock the next section. So I don't know. Obviously I think they want you to get the Mobile Visionary, but I don't know if we really want to run this all the time for Mythic Plus at least. Call of the Week is actually pretty solid. Like, I think they've had to do multiple changes to this, but I think for Mythic Plus, I think this thing's gonna be solid as shit. Honestly, I think that thing's really good. What's up, Bellercut's gonna do? My guess is Haunt and Improved Haunt are the higher skill cap versions compared to just passive Shadows Embrace route. Well, Haunt used to just apply Shadows Embrace in the past. Like, it just worked like that. And that was how you maintain Shadows Embrace very easily, right? And then they just completely removed that like 2 patches ago for like no reason. So, I don't know. But ideally, I think it'd be kind of cool if you didn't necessarily have to take Shadows Embrace and you just took Improved Haunt. It wouldn't be the easiest way of stacking up your Shadows Embrace because Haunt has a cooldown, but it would be a way of you just not having to drain 3 times or send out 3 Shadow Bolts to get Shadows Embrace. You would just ramp up Shadows, like, you know, on with Haunt. Might be kind of cool. I still don't like this talent. I still don't like it. Like, I feel like this talent is, I don't know. I just don't like this talent. Like, increases drain life healing, which I don't care. I guess for PvP you care. And then it's like a 5% execute window when it's like, or 5% extra damage when it's like in 20%. I don't know, man. Like, I like Creeping Death and I like Torment Crescendo. I just don't like this talent. And I feel like we have to take it now to get Soul Rot. Like, especially if you're playing Soul Harvester, you have to take it. There's no other way of getting Soul Rot without it, which I don't personally like that, but whatever. I think this is another talent that we can't really skip either, which I feel like there's more and more of these that got shifted further down the tree that I was already like, I don't think you ever not take that talent. Same with like this one. Why is this a Capstone talent, man? This did used to be a tier set bonus, but it's something that I don't know. I don't know if I like. I liked it when it was up here. I don't like that it's a Capstone, man. Same with this is the new talent, that Malefic Touch. I don't know how you get to this talent without giving up a ton of things. Like, I have 2 points left, which means I still can't get to this talent. You know what I mean? I have to give up so much to get here, and it doesn't seem to me this does. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the exact same spell power damage as Soul Flame right now, by the way. So, I don't know. I think it's an interesting talent. I think it's in a bad spot. Same with Withering Bolt. I think you only would take this if you're playing Soul Harvester, right? Like, if you're playing Soul Harvester, you want to go something, you know, kind of, you would like to get Oblivion too, but I don't know. Where some of this stuff is laid out, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible. All the 2 nodes are killing us. The 2-point node, there's a lot. This one in particular, I swear, I don't think these should be 2-point nodes because you can never get here, man. Like, to get here, you have to give up so much. Like, in what world did you give up 30% rapture damage? Or sorry, 10% rapture damage to get to this, like, just this UA node? I don't know. I liked where these were previously, in my opinion. I do still like Malign Omen. I think this is a solid talent and potentially really good for Mythic Plus. Especially if we're playing Soul Harvester. I think anything that's buffing your Soul Rot window with Soul Harvester is probably going to be pretty solid. Dark Harvest is really good, but again, there might be some points that are a little bit better overtaking Dark Harvest. Some of these more like throughput nodes. Either way, I do think a bunch of the talents are really interesting, but I think that with how it's laid out now, with how many 2-point nodes we have in here, I don't think it's possible to get like nearly as many interesting combinations as we could get in the previous incarnation of these talents. I actually think the previous one, while the bottom area was still a little convoluted with how the capstones were laid out, I think that your upper area was actually really solid. You could get a decent amount of these points and it still didn't feel that bad. Dark Glare was the one like outlier that I think was in a weird spot before, but I hope that we go with a little bit more adjustment to these 2-point nodes like they mentioned in their little response thing, that we're evaluating how many 2-point nodes are available to look in the future, because I think there's just far too many. I think these being 2-point nodes is too many. Potentially Cold a Week being... This entire section reminds me a lot of our current middle section with Soul Swap and Soul Flame. These are more impactful talents, but it seems like you're just wasting talent points here for kind of no reason. I'd like to see some more meaningful choice being made in this section than just wasting points to get them. Who got him started on this? Me. I got me started on this. Time for my filler arc. It's most likely that it won't if it didn't from the start. I have no idea what you're talking about. The first gate is also trash with the 2-point nodes on the right side and left sides. Oh, these nodes? I think this node is fine. I actually think this is just like a filler node. I think this node is completely lacking compared to this one though. Like, I don't even take this like at all unless it's pure single target and raid on our current build. I think this talent has always been like a weird talent. Maybe with Soul Harvester where you're like all your damage is kind of around those windows anyways. Maybe you lean a little bit more towards that talent node, but I just feel like right now it's kind of weird. There's some talents that I'm more curious about how they interact with the hero talents. But I would like to see some more changes made like in this section, to be honest with you. I also think that this should just increase the duration of Agony, not the stat count personally. And I don't know, man. I don't like playing around Shadow's Embrace. I know there's like a bunch of like hero talents that are built around this stuff, but I don't like it. Yeah, 1 stack. Okay, so that's exactly what I thought. But then you can, when you reapply Haunt again, does it catch it or no? Because it lasts for 16 seconds. I guess it's the cast time of this is probably too short. Like you probably can't catch it, right? Yeah, hard to catch it. Okay, so you can't really do that then. Then I almost wonder, I don't know. I guess I'd be curious how much damage this does. And what's it reduce its cast time to, like a second? 25% is like 1.25 or something like that, probably. Don't do math. Nobody better do any math. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Thank you for your service. Yeah. There's still some talents that I think are interesting, but I think for the most part, I've kind of gone over my thoughts about a lot of the stuff. Like, I think the Hellcaller talents are really interesting. I think the Soul Harvester ones are really interesting, but I'm more curious about our class tree right now because it seems like they're trying to build things off of this for the hero talents, but almost like in reverse, where they have the hero talents set in stone, and now they're trying to build our class tree around them, which could actually turn out to be great, but it seems like they don't really know exactly what they want yet, and I'm so happy that they're adjusting it, but we'll see. It's a 0.89 second cast time. That is so awkward. I think they want like your main stuff to be up in these first points. That's why like Agony or Writhe and Agony and like Seed are up here. Like they want these to be like your main first points. Granted, I think it's more about the pathing that's the problem. So I'd almost be more curious if it'd be better to just move this up there. You know what I mean? I don't know if it would necessarily change anything, but it's like, you know what I mean? Malefic Touch applies dots to everything it damages. Malefic Rapture applies dots to everything it damages, which feels bad in the capstone bottom right. It can't be higher. I mean, it's like, it just Rapture does extra damage, but I do think this is an interesting capstone. Like I said, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty sure, yeah, 48% of spell power. 46, so it's actually less spell power percent than whatever Soul Flame is right now. I fucking knew I recognized that number. All right, I'm not gonna like sit and talk about it too much just because I don't have alpha access, so it's I feel like it's one thing for me to kind of just talk and give my feedback and some ideas about things, but if I had access, then maybe I'd go a little bit further into it, but I more just like to talk about my, quick thoughts about some stuff and then, jump into our normal things. I think when I looked at this before, I wondered if there was any world where you, like, at least in the old talent trees, and even this one, I guess, I wondered if you played Hellcaller if you maybe didn't take Soul Rot. But I don't think that's a possibility anymore. Like, I know with Soul Harvester, you never would not take Soul Rot. It's like you're part of the whole thing. But even now, even with Hellcaller, I still don't think there's a world where maybe you don't take Soul Rot, but I don't know. Maybe. I just feel like even if you didn't take one of these nodes, I feel like you're giving up a lot. Anything that's buffing Rapture damage just seems kind of bad to give up ever. It's like our whole thing, so I don't know, man. I wish I could test it. But until we can, that'll have to be good enough.